Hey guys, it's Hannah and welcome back to the Dyslexic Reader. Today we are going to be doing my March 2019 wrap up. I felt like it was a bad month. I felt like the last week and a half were very slow. I've had a lot of busyness in my life this month. So I felt like I wasn't reading a lot, but when I look back, I'm kind of on average for myself. I've read 8 books and about 3,000 pages, which would kind of be my average. I read a good mixture of like YA, adult, mystery, non-fiction, children's lit, so I'm pretty happy with that. I haven't got all the stats because, as I said, I've been very busy this month, but I've got the majority of the books. We're just going to go through them really quickly today because this sun is acting very peculiar. The first one was The City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare. This is the 5th in the Mortal Instruments series, and I give it a 3-star. This definitely is my favourite. So far, the first 3 I enjoyed much better than like the latter 2, but I've only one book left in the series to go, and I'm hoping that it'll pick up. I just want to round it off at this point. I'm not saying that they're not as enjoyable, but I used to just really enjoy them, and now I think that the stories are like a bit weird and there's stuff added in that doesn't really need to be there. But all in all, I'm still enjoying the series and I'm interested to find out what happens to the characters. Then I read BlacKkKlansman, Race, Hate and Undercover Investigation of a Lifetime by Ron Stallworth. I actually listened to the audiobook. This is a non-fiction book about a police detective who is black and who infiltrates the KKK on a big investigation. Not only is it written by the actual officer himself, so it's biographical, but it's also read by him as well if you listen to the audiobook, which I thought was really cool. I give this a 4 stars. I thought it was great. I thought the pacing was good. Sometimes you get these people with really amazing stories, so they tell them, which is great, but they maybe don't have great storytelling abilities. But Ron had as well as an amazing storytelling abilities, and it was hard hitting and parts of it were like really shocking, but it was also funny and really enjoyable, and you didn't have a very satisfactory ending, but that's the way it ended in real life, so you can't really change that. So overall I thought that was good. My next one was also non-fiction, The Devil in the White City, Murder, Magic and Madness at the Fair That Changed America by Erik Larson. This was all about the Chicago World Fair, and half the story was about the architect who built it and half of it was about a serial killer that was going about at the time. The serial killer bit I really enjoyed, the architect bit not so much. Parts of it I found interesting, but parts of it I found really boring. There was chapters and chapters just about meetings and politics and like the legalities of everything and back and forth and just how everything was held up by like people, and it just, that bit, some of the story of the architect was obviously really interesting. So overall I give it a 4 stars because the serial killer bit was all brilliant and the architect bit was mostly good. The writing was good, the pacing was good. It went like one chapter, and the timeline like really fitted really well. And again, it was just a really interesting piece of history at a time that I would be interested in anyway, so it was really interesting to me and I thoroughly enjoyed that one as well. The next one I have to show you, those were both audiobooks, but they were both from the library, so they've already gone back. Explorers on Witch Mountain. This is the sequel to the Polar Bears Explorer Club, which I really loved. This one for me wasn't as much as a win. I wasn't invested. I didn't think that, like, I thought the character development in the first one was really good, which is they just kind of stayed where they were at the end of the last one. I didn't think the story was as good. Same as the last one, like lots of wee bits happened. It was kind of like that as well. So like the first 20 pages and the last 20 pages was the story, and then the middle was all just like random things that happened on their way from A to B, which I don't mind if it somehow links into the end. Like they get items that they'll need at the end, or they learn things about themselves that really help in the end, or they find out secrets along the way that help them at the end. But like this story, if you read like the first 3 chapters and the last 3 chapters, would make sense as like a straight story. All the bits in the middle didn't really make sense. I didn't really like the characters as much in this one, so it was just a 3-star. It was still an okay middle grade adventure book. Then I read The Midnight Hour, it's hard to see in this dodgy light, by Benjamin Reed and Laura Tindler. This was quite good. I like the concept, I think, better than the execution. Again, it was a 3-star. It is about a girl whose parents go missing into the midnight hour, and it's like an alternative London that's still stuck in the Victorian times, but it's where all the, like, I don't want to say monsters, they're called night folk in the book. All the night folk live, so like vampires and pukas and all those kind of things. And her parents disappear into it and she has to follow after them, and then there's a whole, obviously, family history with the night hour that she discovers, and it was just a fun time, but again, nothing brilliant. Next was Invisible Planets. This was edited by Ken Liu, and it was 13 short stories by Chinese authors, all science fiction based, and as well there was littered through it essays about Chinese science fiction. This was so interesting. I really enjoyed it. There was a couple of stories that I really loved. I'm going to look quickly at the context to see if I can remember which ones they were. I really like 100 Ghost Parade Tonight. The City of Silence was pretty good. And Taking Care of God was good as well. So not only was there a wee bit, there was I think there was maybe 6 authors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 authors, and then there was a bit about them, and then a couple of stories. Some of the authors maybe only had 1 short story, some of them maybe had 3 in here by the same author, but they were all together, so you learnt a bit about the author, and then, or the author in some of them was even quoted, you know, a bit about their writing. And then at the end there was 3 essays by different people about how science fiction fits into the Chinese culture and how the culture affects it and how it's different from Western science fiction and the history of it, which I found was the really interesting bit. So overall this is really good. I'm not a big short story fan, but I do feel like science fiction is one genre that short stories work well in. So if you're a fan of short stories, kind of that history of literature, like the Chinese science fiction, or if you're a science fiction fan, I would say all of those people would like this. They're well written, they're well translated, they flow really well, and there's a really interesting mix of stories. It's not the same type over and over again. So I give this a 4-star, but it was a high 4. It was really good. It was just some of the stories I thought were really far off the mark, and one of the essays was very dry. But other than that, it was really good. My next one was another library book that has gone back, and it was, I'm going to have to, Mortal Engines, and the series is called The Hungry City Chronicles. Excuse me. This is by Philip Reeve, and I give this 4 stars. So basically it is a dystopian world in which a lot of cities have, if you've ever seen like Howl's Moving Castle, like that, but the whole city is like that. So the cities are put on all wheels, basically kind of steampunky. They're made into almost giant robots, but they go about eating smaller towns and cities, and then they take what's theirs and kind of add it, you know, patchwork it on to make them bigger so they can go and get more towns and cities. And that's kind of how these people live. And they have, you know, there's engineers and historians and all this kind of thing, and our main character is a historian. And I don't really want to say too much about it because the kind of the plot of the story of what he goes through and who he meets and the kind of underground world that he finds himself in. I really like the way that it unfolded in the story. It was really gripping, it kept me going. So I'm just going to give you that kind of atmosphere image of like a big steampunky roaming London that's going across the UK and Europe, picking off smaller towns, and it's really good. And I think I'll read the next one next month because it was just really interesting. This one, the next one, and our last one was a bit of, I don't want to say a letdown because I didn't dislike it, but it was The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock. This one is really killing me here today, by Imogen Hearns Gower. Absolutely gorgeous book. I really like the premise. So the premise is, it starts with our main character, who wakes up one day, knock on the door, and it is the captain. He is the merchant or the owner of a ship, and it's set in, I think, the 1700s, if I'm not wrong. Volume 1, let's see. 1785 is when it starts. Knock on the door by the captain of a ship, and he says, "I've sold your ship for a mermaid." And then he obviously tries to show off this mermaid and make money of it, but it flings him into high society. He meets this, well, prostitute, for want of a better word, Angelica Neal. And then she becomes like the secondary character, and you kind of follow both their stories. I liked the writing. I thought the pace was very slow, but that could have just been me. And I think a lot of the book was unnecessary. It didn't really add to the overall story. I felt like it was very focused on character development, but yet not a lot really happened. It was kind of a lot of reflections. Yeah, like, this is my history, like, I really need to change. I've done some bad things, and then they don't change, but they pretend like they have. That kind of way. So I like the atmosphere of it. I like the writing style. As I said, the pace was slow, but that could have been me. But I thought like this was far bigger than it needed to be, and it just didn't really intrigue me. Getting near the end, it was just a real slog to finish it. So I just gave it a middling 3 stars, but I can see some people absolutely loving it. I can see where the hype came from for it, because I've heard loads of people raving about it, and I can see why some people would love it, but it just personally wasn't for me. So that's it. As I said, 8 books, around 3,000 pages, so I'm happy with that. I'm still on my goal for, I'm trying to read like 100 pages a day. Not every single day sit down and read 100 pages, but I would like to, by the year, have average that out and have read 30 whatever thousand pages. So I'm still on track with that goal, which would be more pages than I read last year by just a little bit. So I'm still on track for that goal. I have to travel. My TBR is probably going up before this, but I haven't filmed it yet. I'm doing a lot of travelling for the first nearly half of April. So I'm worried that I'm not going to get a lot of reading done. So I'm glad that I'm like slightly above my target, because I might fall back a wee bit in April, but that's okay. That's it for today. Tell me how your March went. I can't even lean forward because look at that, the way the sun's shining in today. It's absolutely blinding. But tell me how your reading March went. I hope you're all happy. I hope you're all healthy. And hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.